Today is Thursday, January 29th, 2026. It's a meeting of the Acushnet Board of Selectmen for the purpose of doing interviews. There's a motion to call the meeting to order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Please rise to the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, just as a reminder, this meeting is being audio and videotaped. This is the first of 3 interviews of finalists who have made their way through the town administrator search. First candidate is Mike Boucher. Dr. Boucher, on behalf of the board, I just want to say this. One, thank you for submitting your name and your credentials to the search committee and ultimately to the Board of Selectmen and your interest in this position. I want to thank you for understanding sort of what we've been dealing with over the last couple months. We've been trying to keep the ship running. Each member of the board has probably contributed more time than they want to on a day-to-day. And also we've had staff pitch in, so it's not that filling this position isn't a priority. It's just when you can imagine, when you're in the middle of something, the throes of the day-to-day, you're just trying to get through the day.
Absolutely.
Right? And then we had the holidays hit us, so I want to thank you for your patience with that. I think each board member has their own set of questions and how we'd like to go through this, but
Sure.
I'd like to just kick off, if that's okay, and then we'll rotate. We'll go to Mr. Gasper and Mr. Hinckley, and then we'll go through the thing. Just to start off, I want to make sure that you understand that you've looked at it, you've realized that the town administrator job is it's not a 8 to 4, 9 to 5 job. There's evening meetings. You understand what the salary range is.
Yes.
But if you were successful, what would your first 90 days look like?
First 90 days, I'd want to review all existing contracts, union, non-union, policies that we have in place, capital planning, take a look at all that, what positions are still needed to be filled, key roles in the town hall complex, because I know that's been an ongoing issue for a little while, this position being one of them.
Right.
Been introduced myself to all the department heads. I think most of them know who I am, but I wouldn't want to assume that, and I would personally reach out to each department head to talk to them, see what their present needs are, what they're going to need in the next few months, that kind of stuff.
I think you just raised a great point. I know you've been around the town for a long time, so I took for granted that everybody knows who you are. So why don't you introduce yourself,
Yes.
Talk about your background, what you do, why you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the residents who don't know me, my name is Mike Boucher. I'm a husband, a dad, and I have 2 dogs at home. I'm a lifelong resident of Acushnet. I went through the school system here. I live in town. I purchased my home in 2005. So I'm a resident and a taxpayer. So I have a vested interest in this town. I've served on the finance committee for the last 20 years. And I think that kind of speaks to itself, that level of service and dedication to our town. I care about our town deeply, and that's why I still serve on this committee, on the finance committee. And the last, I'd say 8 years, being able to serve as vice chair, and the last 5 years as chairperson, I've really relished it. And I feel like it's enabled me to showcase my leadership abilities. And I believe that my FinCom members would attest to that. And professionally, my career, a lot of people know that I've been a chiropractor for 31 years. I stopped practicing actively past August. I needed a break from healthcare. After 31 years, it was a much needed break. And I've been on the finance committee for the last 20 years. I've really developed an affinity for municipal government and thoroughly enjoy it. And when I first started, it was all about learning the language of municipal government. It was, the terminology. But then as time went on, I understood the process more and more. And, now, like, this time of year right now, we just had our first FinCom meeting last night, so, been down this road numerous times. We're starting our budget season, which is one of the busiest times of the year, but, very important because we're gonna get prepared for our annual town meeting. So it's a, several month process that we go through, but I actually enjoy it.
Mr. Gasper? As I mentioned, I'm going to go around, start with you as the vice chair, and then Mr. Hinckley, and we'll just keep going through.
So, Mike, what are the three biggest revenues the town uses for balancing a budget?
Number one would be the tax levy. That's going to be one. Local receipts is another one, which would include excise tax, local fees, and the other source would be free cash.
What are the three biggest revenues the town uses for balancing the budget?
For balancing the budget,
Free cash would not be
no,
one of them.
no, we don't use we don't use free cash for balancing the budget. It's going to be the tax levy, local receipts, excise tax, anything under that category.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hinckley?
Thanks for coming, Mike.
Absolutely.
Appreciate seeing you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
So, as you know, most of the time, we all get along, but we always have disagreements, and we always have differing opinions. In a situation where something hasn't come to the board, and you're being given conflicting direction by each of the board members, how would you handle a situation where individual board members are giving you conflicting direction in the day-to-day operation?
So I think I would want to know what the issue at hand is first. Like, what are we dealing with? I would probably do a little research on my own first to, if it had to do with a certain department, figure out, what's going on. And then I would probably want to sit down with each select person individually to get their take on what the issue is. And then bring everybody in collectively and have a discussion.
Thank you.
All right, back to me. So, negotiating union contracts is a big piece of it, right? And so, what is your experience in negotiation? How do you approach a negotiation? The way we do it in some other towns, a selectman isn't as involved as the way we do it, where selectmen are actually an active member of the negotiating team. But what's your view of that process, and how would you go about, inserting yourself into that?
Well, being on the FinCom, unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity to sit in on contract negotiations. But, I would take a common sense approach to it and always negotiate in good faith. And I know, like in some municipalities, typically one of the select person will be the lead negotiator in some instances, or the town administrator, depending on the level of experience, would be the lead. So in my case, obviously, I wouldn't take the lead right off the bat. I'd probably sit in with whoever has the most experience, and just go about, see how the process goes, because I haven't had the chance to do that as of yet.
Okay, great, thank you. Mr. Gasper?
What is Chapter 70 funding in Mass?
What is Chapter 70 funding? That is for our local schools. Local aid for our schools.
Okay. Is that your question? Okay. Just want to make sure.
You want me to expand on that? It's actually, I can talk more about Chapter 70. I think it's something that needs to be fixed and reworked, because I think our schools need more in Chapter 70. just local aid in general. When I was preparing for last year's annual town meeting, I did a little research on my own, and we've been pretty much flatlined at like 24% total local aid for our town, and I think that's something that definitely needs to improve. Getting half of 1% like we did last year is not going to cut it going forward to keep pace with the cost of the rate of our fixed cost.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Hinckley?
This is probably a lot simpler of a question, but it'll help me determine. I mean, I feel like I know you, but I'd like to ask this anyway.
Sure.
What would frustrate this board most about working with you? Sorry to ask you to be a little self-deprecating, but I
What
think
would
it's
frustrate
important
this
when you have to
board?
work with day-to-day people.
Working with me. I guess maybe sometimes I would get maybe too personally vested in a particular topic. That kind of thing.
Sure.
So sometimes I think you just need to like step back and take a deep breath sometimes, and just don't get overheated in certain situations. To this day, I'm sure you've seen some of my FinCom meetings. Sometimes we go off on a tangent, and I get very passionate about certain things. Things that are going on at the state level that affect us here locally. I wouldn't be sitting here today if I didn't care about that stuff. But yeah, so that's one thing I recognize about myself, to just sometimes just cool it down a little bit.
Thank you.
So playing off of that, I think all of the candidates come forward with a different background and unique experience. From my perspective, I always look for a skill set and traits, and I've said it, here, and I've said it coaching.
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy to be on a winning team, and it's really easy to be up, 10 runs. Everybody feels good about that, but I always look for traits in people and how they handle stress,
Mm-hmm.
how they handle crisis. How do you handle stress and when you're feeling squeezed and you're under a deadline? What's your approach? How do you handle things?
I'll usually, number one, I would never give up on a situation. I've always been a fighter. I've been through stressful things in my life personally. Number one, raising a son on the autism spectrum, not an easy thing to do. Very challenging. So you have to have a lot of fortitude to get through something like that. So that's just that in itself has taught me a lot about never giving up, because my son has come so far from not being mainstreamed in the school system to where he is today. And I give his mom a ton of the credit too, but we had to work together to get him to the point where he is. So just that in itself. And also, the foundation of my life was obviously formed by my parents. So I've gotten a lot of their traits. My character, my integrity, all that comes from them. But a lot of my foundation was also, and I'll go back to sports, because you can relate to this, was built on the ball field. Being part of a team. There's something about that when you play organized sports that you will take away for a lifetime. You learn to work with other people or teammates in that respect. And I would use the analogy of the town administrator is somewhat like a quarterback on the football field. The quarterback is pretty much the leader of the team. The quarterback needs to make sure that all the players that he's playing with knows the play, so they can execute it and it comes out to perfection. That's his job on the field. And if something's not going right, or something doesn't look right, the quarterback needs to know when to call an audible and change things up and pivot to something else. But just, you know, you never give up. I mean, you fight until you come to a solution and figure it out.
Great, thank you. Mr. Gaspar?
What major issues do you see the town facing now and in the next few years?
Right now, I think one of the issues is what we're doing right now. Trying to get some continuity in key positions in our town hall complex. Maintaining some stability in some of these key roles so we don't have as much of a revolving door. I mean, I know it's hard to prevent that completely because our town can only afford to spend so much on certain positions. I get it. And I know you've mentioned about, advertising more for key positions, and I agree with that. And one thing, maybe part of that is, a lot of corporations nowadays will give employees an option of like maybe a hybrid kind of position, some flexibility there, or maybe sharing a role, that kind of thing. Having some flexibility in some of those positions maybe would attract more people to want to work here. That's one of the issues, is employee retention. The other issue is the ongoing issue that we go through every year, and that I personally deal with as the chairman of the finance committee, is struggling to maintain the balance between keeping up with the rate of the fixed cost and not getting enough local aid, and our revenue stream, right? It's a struggle every year, and we know this coming year is going to be another ongoing struggle. And so, what can we do about that long term going forward? That's one of the things I think about. There's some other other issues that are going to take place with our regional school district. That will be big coming up. Schools are important, and I think we need to pay close attention to what goes on, with our schools, because they take up a good percentage of the town's budget, close to 60%. So I think having a presence where we're constantly communicating with our school department, collaboratively between a town administrator position, FinCom, select board, I think is going to be crucial. I think that's something we're going to need to do this year, probably a few times before we even get to annual town meetings, so we're not dealing with what we dealt with last year. Remember at the time.
The year before.
Right. Or trying to figure it out on the town floor.
That was last year.
Yeah, last year. Yeah, so we don't want to go down that road again if we can avoid it. But those would be the things.
As you know, Dr. Boucher, we're a very small town, and long-serving members of our community are very active in the community when it comes to town meeting. Current board members, commission members, former committee members, you name it, are actively invested in this town and are going to need town services. How would you handle the pressure from former or current board members or committee members asking you to speed things up or make exceptions for projects that would need board approval, regardless of what board it was? When we know we have queues and we know we have certain things that may require public hearings and they have to be handled by other boards first, what would be your reaction if somebody walked into your office and asked you to help facilitate, not necessarily break the rules, but move things along to happen quicker?
I'd say, sorry, but we can't do that. We can't overstep the process. I would not be willing to do that. It's not fair to any other resident who may need a similar request. So no, I would not try to use my position to speed something up along those lines.
Thank you.
Last question for me. You talked about your healthcare experience.
Yes.
And just give me an idea of, how you would use that experience in this role, dealing with workman's comp, all of the healthcare related things that we deal with, negotiating health plans, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
What are the trend lines you're seeing? What do you think would help that experience? Why that would help you in this position?
Well, healthcare is constantly evolving, especially the insurance. Jamie can attest to that. This past summer, I had the chance to attend a healthcare forum in Weymouth with other, leaders throughout the Commonwealth, and there were several big insurers there: GIC, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they were talking about, different trends and what is causing costs to escalate the way they are. And one of the takeaways from that was people are utilizing more services now in healthcare, which has helped driving the cost increase. And one thing they talked about at this forum was trying to, obviously, wellness, get your community healthier. So one thing that, if I was in this position, that I would like to do is maybe have more health education seminars for residents, employees, and just talking about basic stuff, not telling people what to do, but just trying to give them information that can keep themselves healthier, because the healthier you are, the less claims you're submitting. And if in a perfect world, if we did that as a society, the health insurance costs would not be what they are now, right? If people didn't smoke, they kept their weight at a certain point. That's in a perfect world, but we don't live in a perfect world. So I would rely on my expertise looking at claims. I had the opportunity this past summer to sit down with our new health insurance brokers from Alliant to learn a little bit about the process of purchasing health insurance for a municipality. So that was good. And I've been in healthcare for 30 years. So I know what it's like to struggle as a healthcare provider to try and get paid. And that's a whole other story. But yeah, keeping work comp claims down, have somebody come in, making sure that, I don't know if OSHA comes in now to our different departments to instruct them on proper ergonomics, for our employees that do more physical work, like our DPW, on proper lifting, prevention, prevent injuries. That I would want to take an active role in that kind of thing.
Great, thank you. Yep.
I'm good, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Bob?
One last question for you, Mike.
Sure.
You're going to run into a slew of issues throughout the day, even on the most perfect day. You're going to get multiple different departments wanting to be the priority for the day. Everybody's going to run into issues. If you were hit by multiple departments in the same day with either an emergency or what they would consider the highest priority order of the day, how would you decide on what the actual priority list is and the order of that?
That's a good question.
Put a lot of time into that one.
That's a good question. Well, I'd have to, see what each problem is and figure it out. And if I wasn't if I was unsure about what should be prioritized, I'd probably reach out to one of you gentlemen on the select board to get some feedback. To get your take, because I know you guys are the CEOs of the town, and pretty much the town administrator follows your directive. So I would not go ahead and do anything without probably running it by any one of you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Questions? No, this is, look, I know it's been a long process, but I appreciate the process, and I think it was good to go through this exercise. You know, because I want to make sure that the right person is sitting in this seat, or, you know, Jamie's seat, you know, for the town. And if it's not me, then it's somebody else. And, you know, whatever your decision is amongst, you know, you three gentlemen, I'll respect that. And no matter what the outcome is, I will continue to serve my role on the FinCom like I have, with respect and dignity, and because I still enjoy it. I still enjoy the process. You know, last night was our first meeting, and I was like, oh, all right, here we go again. It started off a little slow, but then once we started talking about the stuff, the fire came back, and I said, you know, I started speaking a little bit, and you know, people who know me, I mean, when I started off on this finance committee, I was pretty quiet and unassuming. Kevin can probably attest to that because he was on the FinCom with me, and I've kind of grown over the years where I'm much more outspoken now, and probably more so now the last several years, now that I've been the chairperson. So out of necessity, I mean, overall, it's been a great experience serving on the committee in town. It's you attain such a wealth of knowledge about municipal government, more so than you would probably attain going to any college. You know, doing this, getting right in the weeds and in the thick of it, is probably the best knowledge that anybody can get. And I think all three of you gentlemen can attest to that, because you've served for so many years on the select board. Kevin, you've served for so many years, FinCom and select board. And Bob, you're newer to it, but I think you've done an outstanding job since you've been in that role.
Thank you.
You know, you've taken on that role of answering everybody's questions on social media, which is not easy to do. But you do a great job doing that.
I appreciate that.
You can see your passion in your answers, and that goes a long way, I think, for the residents.
I hope so.
Yeah, great. Well, look,
Mr. Chair.
yeah,
I just want to thank Mr. Boucher. I did get very late in the day, the screening committee, some of your responses, the candidates' responses to the questionnaires that they did. And I can say this, I respect your honesty in answering those questions. I breezed through it relatively quick, but I did obviously understand what I was reading about some of your responses, and I respect that honesty. And I also would like to thank you for your service to this community for the last 20 years. You have been on that FinCom. You've dedicated a good portion of your life, as most of us have, with an exceptional job that you've done with all FinCom members. So congratulations to that. And regardless of the outcome of whatever we're doing moving forward with this position, Mike, you're a dear friend. I have a high level of respect for you. Just continue doing what you're doing.
I share the same sentiments, Kevin. There'll never be any animosity, no matter what the outcome or decision is. Because I know you gentlemen are in a tough spot too.
you might have animosity if you get the job.
But yeah, so it's been an interesting ride, and you know, wherever, you know, whatever the outcome is, you know, it's whatever's meant to be is meant to be.
Yeah.
But
Last thing I'll say, Mike, since you're serving the town, I think this process is kind of indicative of where of the town and how it's run. Is you get a very active board, right? And so, as I mentioned before, when you've got three people that are active and involved in the day-to-day, you know, in some subconscious way, like, all right, we'll get to a town administrator, but we're keeping things afloat now, right? So I think that's kind of is an indicative, an indicator of what you see is what you get here.
Absolutely.
You know? So whether the process was long or short, flawed, perfect or not, it is what it is, and that's what that's what you'd be getting into.
This isn't an easy thing to do, and it shouldn't be easy. And I don't think residents realize how much work you gentlemen put in to what goes to make this town run, and the behind-the-scenes work, the phone calls that you're getting probably after hours. I've seen it personally, and I thank each and every one of you for what you do for our town. It goes a long way. So.
Right. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. And shout out to Jamie Kelly, one of the best town administrators I've had the opportunity to work with since I've been on the FinCom.
Let yourself out.
Yep.
I think that door is locked.
No, you can go
I'm
out.
just gonna-
Oh, you can
just
walk
can't-
out. Yeah,
You can
yeah,
come
yeah.
out, you can go out, you can't
Do you want to
come
let
in.
Margaret know, bring in the next candidate?
It's not what I meant. One for each question.
Mr. Ian Avery.
All right.
Good afternoon, everyone.
All right.
Good to see you all.
How are you?
Good afternoon. Good to see you.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting me. Hope you're all well.
So what we do is, we're gonna go round robin.
Okay.
Each member of the board has questions, but we'll introduce ourselves. David Wonard, Chairman of the Board,
Kevin Gaspel?
Bob Higley.
and Jamie Kelly. So Ian Abreu, thank you for being here and putting yourself into the process. Just want to thank you for your understanding. I know it's been a long time. The process has probably gone much longer than you anticipated, but as I mentioned earlier, we were an active board, and the three of us, and Jamie Kelly and Jamie V, we're active daily, right? So
Understood.
when you're in the middle of it, when you're in the day-to-day, you're like, well, we'll get to there, right?
Yeah.
And we appreciate your patience.
Thank you.
As I mentioned in closing to our previous candidate, sort of how this process has gone is what you kind of see, what you get with kind of Acushnet and town running, right? Where things haven't missed a beat, even though it's imperfect.
Sure.
So, with that said, if you could introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and then I've got a question to kick it off, and then we'll go
Sure.
through the process.
Sure. So good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jamie, good to see you all. Thank you for the opportunity. Again, my name is Ian Abreu. I am a 40-year-old lifelong South Coast, Massachusetts resident where I've lived in New Bedford my entire life. That's where I'm currently raising my two children, Adrian Hunter, 9 and 5 years old, married to my wife Samantha. I am a product of the New Bedford public school system, where I was honored to have graduated from New Bedford High in 2004. From there, went on to Bridgewater State, now university. It was college back then. I guess I'm kind of showing my age a little bit. I received my degree in communication arts and science from there. I'm not going to go over my entire job history because you have my resume and it'll be kind of long, but just some highlights. After college, I was very proud of my work being spent with the One South Coast Chamber of Commerce. It was formerly the New Bedford Area Chamber of Commerce, where I oversaw all our government affairs, public policy work, business development affairs, where I helped small businesses grow, open, start up, and thrive. And then in concert with that, I've been an elected member of the New Bedford City Council now for 10 years, having served in various leadership capacities as City Council President, First Vice President, Second Vice President, as well as Chairman of various committees. And of course, under Plan B of the City Charter of the City of New Bedford, we oversee all of our budgetary issues, ordinances, mayoral appointments to boards and commissions, as well as setting of the tax rate and being responsive to constituent service, which I know you all can understand and you can appreciate as well. So that's a little bit about me at 30,000 feet. We can get more into it throughout the interview, but that's kind of a quick snapshot of who I am personally and professionally.
Great, thank you. Just to start off, want to make sure you understand that the job is not an 8 to 4, 9 to 5 proposition. You're sort of at the call of the board and whatever else is going on in town. If you got a snowstorm or hurricane, or you've got pipe leaks, or you got a pipe breaks in the Parting Ways building, phone is always on. You understand what the salary range is.
I do,
and all
Mr.
that
Chairman.
stuff.
Thank
Okay,
you.
good. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page there. If you were successful, what would your first 90 days look like? I always feel like in this world, 90 days is always a good benchmark.
Yeah.
People judge leaders by their first 90 days. So what would that look like for you?
Well, obviously, we're going to be right in the thick of budget, okay? And we're going to be developing that budget. I know it's in the process right now with the Finance Committee. That work has already begun and it's been undertaken. We're going to look at the budget. We're going to have to work collaboratively as a board, myself, the Finance Committee, to kind of see where we're at from this year and where we're going to try to go for this upcoming year. Obviously, I know our budget this year for FY26 was around 37 million. So as we develop that budget, we got to figure out sort of where our budgetary revenue short gaps may be. I know there's about a $1.2 million gap and lack of shortfall of revenue that we have to try to make up and try to figure out where we can develop new revenues from, whether through local receipts, responsible economic development, discussions around where this community and where its townspeople and under the direction of this board, where you folks want to take this town and how you want to grow our tax base, all while not infringing on the sanctity and the charm and the beauty of this town, which is very important to the townspeople, to all of you, and to me as well. But most importantly, I think too, when working in concert with all of you and the Finance Committee, and as we develop our budget for fiscal year 27, I've got to listen. It's very easy for me to do this, but I think it's important for me throughout the 90 days to do a lot of this, meeting with our department heads, meeting with stakeholders in the community, business leaders, and of course following your direction as the appointed and elected select board under your direction and serving under your policy priorities and how you think and how you feel this town should be ran. I'm sure you already saw, you may have already looked, the governor released her fiscal 27 budget a few days ago. I don't know if you saw the cherry sheet proposal. The House and Senate still have to mark it up. Hopefully they don't mark it up by much, but it's about $400,000 more than you received this past year, which isn't bad, but hopefully we can advocate for more going forward. And I think my relationship or relationships with members of our state delegation certainly can help, having done a lot of work with them throughout my career. So I think it's going to be a collaborative effort. There'll be a lot of things we have to do, but I look forward to the challenge, and I think I'm up for it.
Great, thank you. Mr. Gasper?
Can you just go back to what you just said about our revenue going up 400,000 from state aid?
Yeah, last year I had it at a combined 1.9, so excuse me, last year was 9.1 from the state cherry sheet. This year it's 9.58.
Yeah, I don't think that's correct.
Well, that was according to the Commonwealth's website I pulled, so.
We just got an proposed increase of 100?
After the increase of all the assessments.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Okay. We wish we were getting $400,000 more.
Well, that's what we're looking at right now, but again, it could get marked up. That's the cherry sheet that came out 2 days ago that I just saw. 9.58 million and 7.46 of that would be Chapter 70.
The second page has the money they're charging us.
I saw that as well for the mosquito and for the...
Yeah,
for
you
the-
back
for the-
off assessments,
yeah,
right?
Yes, correct, yeah.
And that's over $500,000. So, what's your experience with public safety entities and managing staff in a previous role?
Well, as a New Bedford City Councilor, obviously, we oversee all the city's ordinances and operations of those said ordinances, working with the mayor in collaboration. We are not the executive branch of government in New Bedford. We are the legislative branch. So as far as overseeing police departments, fire departments, things of that such, we are the fiscal agent. We, for lack of a better term, we wield the checkbook. So we set their budget. They come before us during the budget every year. And throughout the budgetary process, we can shore up or sort of tighten up any operational issues or concerns that we may have to achieve our collective budgetary needs, which we've been able to do. For example, this past year, we cut $15 million out of our fiscal year 26 operating budget. And, you know, some thought that the world was going to cave in here with the city of New Bedford, but it didn't happen. We ended up actually finishing up this fiscal year, you know, with about to finish it up with about a $4.6 million surplus, which is going to be in free cash, which is actually a great thing for us. So what I'm getting at is we were able to responsibly manage our budget, all while generating a surplus in revenue that can obviously help towards other initiatives and programming here with the city. Under Plan B of the city charter, I think you might know that, you know, following New Bedford government and how it works. Our fiduciary responsibility is not the executive branch of overseeing police and fire and the city departments. Our responsibilities under our fiduciary role is of a legislative, financial manner. Again, all transferable skills, but we're not in the day-to-day overseeing, hey, what's going on with the staffing issues or whatever. When these concerns come up, they come up in our finance committee or our ordinance committee meeting, we file the appropriate motions, and that's where the work really gets done, and that's where the work I've been doing for the last 10 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Ian.
Good to see you, Bobby.
Obviously, scaled down version of what you're currently used to. It's a small town that has a lot of big voices, as I've explained to you in the past in our conversations here. Not always from the public, a lot of times it's from departments here, and it's very important to understand every department in every municipal building on property, or off property, so to speak.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a lot of day-to-day decisions that you would have to make as a town administrator. There's also a lot of decisions that the board has to make. How would you balance taking the initiative with knowing when something would need to come in front of the board?
Well, I've always prided myself on being a transparent person, and I serve at your pleasure. I serve at the board's pleasure. Now, I realize that you all have day jobs, and I can't come to you with every single question. At the beginning, I probably would, because I want to beseech your knowledge. And don't think that, you know, I'm being overzealous by doing that, but I would want to do that because I'd rather do it correctly and get the correct information and your guidance, as opposed to maybe assuming that I might have the answer and maybe do something that might not be in the best interest of what your policy initiatives are, or what's in best interest for the town. So the question you asked is, when would I know when to make a decision?
Correct.
Well, obviously, you hired me to be a coach, and I'm here to be a coach. You know, it's a sports analogy in a way, right? I kind of look at this in a way where it's, you hired me to be the coach. You're the general manager, and the townspeople who run town meeting, and our town, our town meeting members, they're the owners, they're the stakeholders. We're here for them. We're here to help and serve them, to make sure that we are running this town efficiently. You hire me to be a coach. You hire me to make sure that the town is running smoothly, and I'm going to do that because I understand people, and I've been great at dealing with people throughout my entire life, managing staff through my small businesses, managing staff at the Chamber of Commerce, overseeing my staff, excuse me, in the city council office. So I have a great feel for interpersonal communication and dealing with people and handling situations. There's going to be times where I'm going to have to come to you for support. I'm going to have to come to you for help when they get to that point where I feel maybe it's been escalated and I'm going to really need your backup and I'm going to need your counsel. But I'm not going to be bothering you every single day, 7, 8, 10 times a day for every little question, because at that point, throughout that 90 days, when I'm going to be asking a lot of questions and I'm going to be beseeching your knowledge, at that point, I'm going to be up and running and I'm going to be fully immersed and engaged and ready to go to answer those questions or concerns that may come up here in the town. And like I had said to the chairman earlier, throughout that 90 days, it's important for me to break bread with our department heads. And I would, lean on you folks to help make those introductions for me, to help connect me, to help with that better connectivity, so that I can get more fully immersed in with the folks that are running the town, the people with the boots on the ground, the real stakeholders of this community. So I think that's kind of how I would approach it, and that's kind of my philosophy.
Perfect.
I'm a bottom-up, I'm not a top-down kind of a person. I'm a very boots-on-the-ground, transparent person. That's the way I've always been.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think for me, the candidate I'm looking at is somebody who has experience, right, real world experience, the ability to adjust on the fly. And I think with these jobs, people tout their town administrator experience, and that can be a double-edged sword. Like, it's great to have somebody who has 20 years or 30 years of town administrator experience, but you're also inheriting some habits that may not be great for the town or be great for the environment they're working on. So I think, tell me how you would want to draw on your working knowledge, right? And then secondly, temperament is really important to me, the ability to handle stress, handle crisis. So share with me like how you would draw on your experience and not be a case of, this is the way I've always done it and this has to work. And then talk to me about how you handle crisis and stress.
I think the fact, and that's a great question, I think the fact that I wasn't born here and I didn't go through school here in the town, even though I know a million people in Acushnet, the fact that I'm not part of any type of faction, if you will, or any type of alliance politically, or whatever the case may be in the town, I think that's actually an advantage to me, because I'm coming in with a clean and clear set of 4 eyes in this, in a way, because my only objective is going to be to make sure that this town is functional, running well, and running efficiently under your direction as a select board. My only agenda is and will always be to make sure that this town is running up to its optimal strength and abilities and capabilities. But as far as transferable skills, I feel as though I have them. I mean, I was city council president really during the heart of the COVID-19 pandemic. Myself, I won't take all the credit, but myself and the mayor and other colleagues of mine, my finance chairman at the time, we oversaw the rebuilding of New Bedford through the American Rescue Act. That was over $63 million, and not counting the $20 million we received from the county, overseeing and working with our federal partners and our state partners to develop the buckets of funding and how we rebuild New Bedford for economic development, regrowth, and rebounding, health and wellness, infrastructure for lead and sewer replacement, water lines in New Bedford, how we rebuild New Bedford as it relates to our schools and helping them get back up to running again, getting kids back from an extended period of time of remote learning. That's to your question about handling stress. That was quite a stressful position, because there's never a panacea for something like that. There's no silver bullet where this is the perfect package and how you can rebuild a community like New Bedford, where I still am one of 11 plus the mayor 12 people are responsible for the health and wellness and safety of 101,000 people. I take that very seriously, and I've been doing that for a while. I mean, our budget is about $600 million for fiscal year 26, and that's a budget that we deliberate through our finance committee, and then through our budget process, through our cutting process, and then we set a budget. So as far as handling stress, that's something that I've been able to handle pretty well, I would say, because I'm a collaborative person, working hand in glove with former councilor Brad Markey in Ward 1, who was the finance chairman at that time, the mayor, working with department heads, but most importantly, we had these listening sessions where I would engage the stakeholders, small business owners, folks in the health community, about how we can rebound a city like New Bedford. And I'm happy to say a lot of that work, we're bearing fruit on that now. We're having a lot of new housing developments that are coming online in the city, where a certain percentage of them are linked to workforce housing, and we have market rate opportunities. So that was not an exercise for the faint of heart, but I enjoyed it, and it was stressful at times, but it was work that was important work. We got it done, and I loved it, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. So as far as that, and as far as transferables, of course, ideally, I would say that if I was in your shoes as an elected select board member, of course you would say I would want someone who has 10, 15, 20 years experience as a town administrator. I would say that too, because I've been in that seat. Currently I'm in that seat wearing another hat, so I get it. I also think too, someone like myself has those transferable skills that has room to grow, room to learn, and I want to learn, I want to soak it up, but can also understand the lingo, the players at the state and federal level, to be able to get things going on day one working with all of you, and then after that, soak it in, keep continuing to do my job, and then once we finally collaborate and set the new fiscal year budget, hit the ground running. That's going to be really the beginning of the refresh for me in working with this board. I know you won't be here at that time, Mr. Chairman, but that's something that I would look forward to doing, and I think I could do that. And I know I could do it very well.
Mr. Gaspar?
What major issues do you see the town facing now and in the next few years?
Well, I think revenue, I mean, obviously, we want to continue to advocate for smart economic growth and smart economic development. Budgetary constraints are always a concern to a municipality like Acushnet. I would say that when you look at something like our revenue source of the town, when two-thirds of the revenue comes on the back of property taxpayers, that's obviously concerning to me. I want to try to figure out ways to leverage, whether it's, and I know some of the work that's been done here with Route 240, and I know that the state conversation about economic development for that area next to PJ Keating, but you look at like the Main Street area, which is under state control, and I know that there's been some talk about eventually a capital improvement project to de-lead Main Street. I think things like that eventually, because I know there's lead pipes underneath, so I know that sometimes discussions like that need to be had as far as economic drivers, economic development for a town like Acushnet. State aid was only about 25% of the revenue that came in, so continuing to maybe advocate for state aid to be increased here, I think that's important. I think making sure that the community is obviously, we have to understand the role of a town administrator, and it's a couple of points that I want to drive in, Selectman Gaspar, as far as being a good town administrator, in my opinion. We got to obviously run the day-to-day operations of the town. Make sure, working with you, under your leadership, under your advice and counsel, that we're overseeing the general government operations of the town. That's number one. Number two, we need to support impactful policy, in my opinion, that is under your direction of the Board of Selectmen, to make sure that those town priorities, whether it's for better fiscal management, smart growth, economic development within the parameters of what the townspeople want, smart growth, like I said, appropriate growth, that's important. Number three, being the chief procurement officer, lawful, ethical purchasing and procurement of contracts and services. You got to make sure we're doing that correctly. And then lastly, we've got to have a close working relationship. Me to you, you to me, our finance committee, our townspeople. That's important too. So I think those are all issues that we can talk about with the town, but I would say proper fiscal management is very important to me, and I know it's very important to you all as well, being as fiscally mindful as possible.
Mr. Hinckley?
Kind of play back to a couple of the conversations we've already had.
And I'm taking notes, by the way. I'm not being rude. I'm just taking notes.
Of course.
That's what I do during meetings.
So, you brought up your American Rescue Plan amounts and dollar amounts. You said, what, 53 million plus 20 from the
It was
county?
64 from the feds, and then we have received a tranche of just about 21 million from the county.
So, obviously, it's spread out
Right.
proportionally among communities, and we received a lot less than that.
Sure.
Do you think it'd be a hindrance coming from a city with a large budget where dollars like that can be spread out over multiple projects to the hindrance of being in a small town like Acushnet, where our, I guess you could say, revenues such as that are a lot smaller and they have to be priority projects? Knowing what you go through now with a $600 million budget, walking into a $39 million budget, and knowing that the cuts go a lot harder when you have really small budgets, knowing that cost of living is going up,
Yeah.
people are paying more for every bill they walk into, fixed costs are going up, and the amount of people willing to serve or join a municipal government operation just as employees is becoming harder and harder, because private sector work pays better, has better benefits health-wise, not necessarily all the time, but do you think your experience in New Bedford would hinder you walking into a small community, being able to adapt to a much lower revenue stream and the ability to facilitate that across the community?
I don't believe so, because it would allow me the opportunity to be really hyper-focused on what really matters to the townspeople and under the direction of this board. You're correct about the American Rescue Act, the tranche and the buckets of money, the monies that we received, that was definitely quite an undertaking, but I have no problem being hyper-focused, and as I am with all of my budgetary and operational initiatives working with the city of New Bedford. I've had no issues doing that, and I'll have no issues doing that here. I think there's a couple of things with that. I think when you're looking at things like the revenues that might come into the town, whether through local receipts, whether you're looking through property taxpayers or state aid, I think there's a couple of things we would have to continue to look at. I mean, reserve planning, I know that's already been happening, budget cuts. There's a lot of things that I think that we need to be really focused on. And I know you're already focused on that. This board's already been focused on a lot of these areas, and I want to continue to do that great work. Targeted capital investments, when, like I just talked about, whether it's public safety, infrastructure, when and if appropriate. Re-engage and engage the town residents for their important impact. I think something I would like to do within the 90 days too is I would like to have these coffee hours with town residents and stakeholders, whether we would have them here or throughout other parts throughout the community, maybe the Tuttle Post, where I could listen to some of the town residents as well to hear some of their concerns that I could bring back to you at the board. I know you're on the ground anyway, you're receiving the calls, you're getting the emails, especially you, Bobby. I see you on the Acushnet page, and from one guy who's very engaged on social media, I tip my cap to you for doing that.
Well, thank you.
But I want to hear
Comes with its own problems, like blood pressure, but that's all.
But I want to hear their concerns, because maybe they might open up to me and say something they're not going to say to you, because I'm not the elected official. So maybe there's a concern I can bring back to you and say, hey, there are some concerns here as it relates to this department, this budget, reserve planning, state aid questions, whatever the case may be. So it's a very fluid process, but I think I would have no problem being hyper-focused, and you're right. A cut for a town like Acushnet in a certain department, it cuts deep. You feel it. You feel it in New Bedford, but especially you'd really feel it in a town like Acushnet. And I'm respectful and cognizant of that. I'm also respectful and cognizant that we have an aging population in the town, and folks are looking to save their dollars, and they're looking to stay in their homes, and they expect an appropriate level of a quality of life. And it's our job to make sure that we do the best we can to have that said quality of life.
Thank you.
We're, any questions of us?
No, I'm pretty abreast, I think, on what the next steps or step might be. I know I'm one of a couple that you're speaking with. And then at that point, it's up to you, the board, to figure out what your next step or steps might be, whether one of us three or whatever you might want to do. So I think that's pretty clear, right? That's kind of where we're at in this process, right?
Yep.
Ideally, Mr. Chairman, or through you or any of the select board members, I would assume that you would like someone sooner rather than later, because budget's coming. And right, is that a fair question? Yes. Okay.
Great, thank you. Well, as I mentioned before, thank you for your being part of this process. Thank you for understanding. It didn't go as expeditiously as we had hoped. We ran up against the holidays, and as I mentioned before, we literally have been head down, day to day, dealing with issues and working with. Jamie Kelly was out on medical leave, and so we've been grabbing people from different departments to make things run. But I am proud to say that we did not skip a beat to the outside. Like a family, when you're pulling together like a family dinner, nobody knows the chaos that goes on. They just see a nice meal. So I am proud to say that despite that, I still believe that we continue to deliver on behalf of our residents. So.
Well, I just want to say, Mr. Chairman, too, I'm well aware of what I would need to do politically and professionally if we were to go forward. So I am prepared to do what I have to do if we decided to agree to go forward. Right. So just for the record, so there'd be there's no conflicts. I know what I have to do, or would have to do, and I am prepared to do that if need be. I'm looking to continue to grow my career and ascend my career in public service, and I think this would be a great fit for me and for all of us alike. I think we could do some great things together. So, but I just wanted that for the record, so townspeople don't think that I'd be trying to serve two masters or any type of conflict. Just for the record.
Right. I think because all of us as elected, I respect your role as an current elected official, so I didn't want to put you on the spot for that. So I appreciate you raising it proactively on your own.
Well, I think you're gonna find, and I think Selectman Hinckley would, maybe agree, he sees me on social media, I'm a very transparent person.
Very much so.
And I wanted to do that here for all of you and for the townspeople who are watching or listening to this meeting on cable access. They need to know, because people in Acushnet, they know who I am for the most part. I mean, you can hit New Bedford with a stone from here, so, I want them to know I'm not gonna be going back, ping-ponging back and forth. I'm ready, and mentally and emotionally, I'm ready to make that move, so we decide to go forward. But either way, I appreciate the opportunity very much. To be in the mix, it really is an honor, so I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
All right.
You as well.
Be well.
You as well. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can I call for a brief recess?
Yes. We're back for our last interview of the day with Ms. Heather Chu. Heather, before we start off, I'll just go through, I know you know us, but David Warner, Chairman of the Board, the Selectmen.
Kevin Gaspar?
Bob Hinckley.
Thank you for doing this. Again, I want to thank you also for understanding the process, that it took a little bit longer than we had hoped. Ran up against the holidays, but also, Jamie's medical leave. We've got, as you know, got an active board, and we're all head down, just getting through each day by day. And so to get to, not to say that this was an important issue, but when you're in the middle of something, it's hard to, deviate and get onto a big issue like this. So I think with Jamie now back, it's given us the grace to do that. So with that said, we'll go around robin. But before we start off, I just want to make sure that you understand that this job is not just an 8 to 4, 9 to 5 job. It requires evenings, on call, so on and so forth. And you also understand the salary range and all of that. So with that said, if you could introduce yourself, tell us about you and your experience. And
Sure. So this seems a little redundant, you guys know me. My name is Heather Chu. I'm a New Bedford resident. Served as your Council on Aging Director for a little over 12 years. Stepped away for a while just to kind of build my skill set and find my niche in the world. Bishop's Dane grad, go Spartans, because I know you are also. I hold a degree in public administration from Southern New Hampshire University. I'm currently attending Northeastern University for my master's in public administration. So Jamie and I have had many conversations. Town administrator has always been my long-term goal since around 2020. So yeah, 6 years. And so here we are. Again, I won't regurgitate my resume to you. I know it's in front of you, but please, let's start the questions.
Great, thank you. As I started off with the other candidates, so I think, in government, 90 days is always a good benchmark, right? So what would you look to do how would you approach your first 90 days? How would you go about it, and what would you view as a successful 90 days?
So I love this question. I feel like the softball. If I could approach for a second, I actually brought you a 100-day plan.
Oh, okay.
That was like a softball question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Obviously, this isn't completely comprehensive. I mean, it's kind of how I think my first 100 days would look. My first 30 days, I'd like to look at where we are in the current budget. Obviously, you're in budget season. Your finance committee is meeting now, getting ready for the next fiscal year. I'd like to, right off the bat, start a meeting cadence with your department heads. I'd like to meet with them as a group quarterly and with them individually one-on-one every other week, just so that we have that sacred time, sacred space, so that we can keep those lines of communication. I think what's happened is you've been so busy putting out fires, you haven't had time to be proactive. So I think keeping those lines of communication open with department heads will allow us to be more proactive instead of reactive. I also, guys, I want to address the uncomfortable truth in the room. You've been very transparent about how you feel about us as candidates, that maybe we aren't prepared. So I think that I need to come to the table with a plan. I think my foundation is strong, educationally, knowing the town. But I also think that working with MMA, they have town administrative boot camp, if you will. There's a class in Middleborough, it's a one-day class. It covers the foundations, the things you might need to know in those first 90 days. I would go ahead and I would sign up for that. So I think coming in and being very proactive in those first 90 days and keeping those lines of communication open right from the start is going to be very beneficial to both of us.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Gaspar.
It's question time.
It is.
And I'm a little nervous, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Don't be nervous. Can you explain what is Chapter 70 funding in Mass?
Sure, Chapter 70 was established to promise every child in Massachusetts a fair and equitable education in the state. Unfortunately, the formula that was developed hasn't kept up pace with what our costs are, especially with the cost of transportation and special education rising. I believe you're receiving just under $12,000 per pupil for education, which is definitely not keeping up with your costs. I think that we need to take a hard look at 60% of your budget, roughly. And I think that's, part of the problem, and not to be addressing problems, but I think that we need to be transparent in what we need to do. I think we have a very you versus us mentality, unfortunately, from the town side to the school side. It was always been that way. I think that occurs in many cities and towns. I think we need to start fixing that, and we need to work collaboratively, and we just need to come at it together, not where we're trying to figure it out on town floor like last year. Or in the 8th hour, it's like, what are we gonna do? I'm gonna stack the deck at town meeting to get what I want. That doesn't work. That makes you look bad, that makes them look bad, and I think it's time for that to stop and for everybody to come to the table together.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Heather.
Hi.
This is more of a personality question.
Sure.
What do you feel is a healthy relationship between the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator?
I think a healthy relationship is for you to be approachable but not always accessible. I think that I need to learn to be independent and come to you and be transparent. You need to know what you need to know right away before it becomes an issue. But I also think that I need to be able to stand on my own 2 feet and be able to handle the day-to-day without being micromanaged and handheld. But I also think it's working with each of you to understand what your legacy projects are, what your... You haven't in a long time had a meeting where you set a strategic plan. Again, because you've been so busy putting out fires, you haven't had a chance to say, this is what I'd like to accomplish this year. So I think it's working collaboratively. And Mr. Kelly, not to throw you under the bus, but Mr. Warner, I'll use that monument thing. I appreciate that you took the hit for that, for everything that played out with that. But as a town administrator, I would expect you to say, this is what I want to accomplish with this monument. It's my job. Is it legal? Is it ethical? Are we doing procurement properly? So it's my job to make that happen legally and ethically. And to kind of just take your vision and put it into reality.
Thank you for that, but I didn't even know we had a damn monument until...
Well, okay, but I appreciate that.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
But it's hard to be in your chair and say, hey, listen, I own this.
Right.
You know what I mean? When you weren't the only player on the field.
Thank you. All right, so one of the, I think, big issue that we deal with is, healthcare,
Yeah.
Health insurance, that responsibility for our employees. Working as our Council on Aging Director, you had some visibility there. So I just want to get a sense of what your experience is in that world and how you look to apply that. Because it's a big piece of it, right? It's making sure our employees are happy, but also we got to recognize what the cost is and their better plans and better way to do things. So if you could talk about that.
Sure. I think that's always going to be painful if costs are never going to go down in healthcare, especially, we're utilizing it more and more. So I think in one aspect, you're offering wellness programs to your employees. We're offering flu shots. We're doing wellness clinics. We're kind of that fun, fluffy stuff that, isn't a big deal, isn't costing our health, compared against our health insurance. But I think it's also coming up and giving incentives. Okay, if you're not going to use our health insurance, maybe you get a little bonus. That was something that we did in one of my previous employers. So I don't think you're ever going to stop it from going up, but I just think it's being, again, clear, transparent, communicating to your staff that it's going to go up. We're working in your best interest. These are the plans. And I think sometimes what happens too is people come down and they say, yep, your insurance is going up and there's nothing you can do about it. I think maybe laying it out for your staff, saying like, these were our options. This is what we had to choose from. This was the lesser of the evils. So again, I think we're really lacking in clear, concise, transparent communication with our staff, and I think that's been part of the big problem. So that's one thing that I would definitely change. You may still not like at the end of the day that your insurance is going up 12%, but if you have catastrophic claims, or in my previous employer we had 12 babies in 1 year, that didn't help our case. It's inevitable that it's going to go up.
Having babies is a good thing, isn't it?
Absolutely, I've got 3, thank you.
How would you approach addressing a budget deficit?
In one area or just overall? Anyway, okay.
Budget deficit.
Budget deficit. So I think, right, we're relying on our local receipts, our tax levy, and our state aid. State aid is like Chapter 70 obviously hasn't kept up. I think it's working very closely with our state delegation to see where, we can find additional money. I think it's being very strategic, getting out there, working with MMA and other groups to look for grants that maybe we've never even heard of before. So I think it's just really to have that ear to the ground and listening and finding out and building those relationships to see where additional funding may be available. I think it's moving the master plan forward and not letting that sit on a shelf once it's done. I mean, let's face it, we don't have a lot of businesses in town. We need to start to attract more business. We need to kind of steward those relationships and welcome them with with big arms. And so I think there's a lot of things you can do. I don't think it's ever going to be perfect, but I think there's a lot of untapped potential.
Thank you.
What kind of system or routine will you put in place to make sure certain things don't fall through the cracks? Obviously, to elaborate a little bit more on what I'm asking is, you can have a plan every day,
Yep.
and by 8:02,
Yes.
everything goes to the wind.
Mm-hmm.
We need to make sure that the original plan still gets handled while you're helping us put out fires.
Right.
So from an organizational standpoint, what is your process?
So I am a Post-it girl. I love Post-its. But no, I think you need to be very strategic, and you need to be able to identify what are true fires and what are perceived fires by other people. I think you can have 3 department heads at your door at one time, and everybody thinks it's on fire. And I think it's being able to have those conversations to kind of just determine how you need to strategize and prioritize that. But I think it goes back also to talking to your department heads and having that clear one-on-one communication that you have whatever the cadence is, just so that you know what's on the horizon, so that maybe you can put it out while it's still kind of smoldering and it's not quite a fire yet. So I think it's just it's true. And if you know, and I think you also have to empower your staff. You need to know, they need to know that you trust them and that you're approachable, they can come to you for anything, but that you're not always going to be available, and that sometimes they need to be independent and kind of figure it out and be able to determine what they should be figuring out themselves and what they need to be transparent about and come to you right away with.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So for me, experience and temperament
Mhm.
is really important,
Yeah.
right? So you've got some real world experience, and I love the fact that you're looking to better yourself, and you're doing the hard work, and you're going back to school, and you're getting the certifications, and you're always. So talk about how you would apply the experience,
Okay.
right? That you're acquiring. You're not coming in with a set way of
Right.
I've always done it this way, and
Yeah.
how do you handle stressful situations? How do you handle, like a air quotes, a crisis situation, or something that's like conflict, right?
So I think the best thing to say to you is that I step up. I work best into chaos, and I'll use my work with the town during COVID. Now, I live in New Bedford. I dedicated all my time to Acushnet during the pandemic. I was an emergency management volunteer. I earned my EMT certificate so that I could be able to give vaccinations when we started that. So I just think it's by stepping up. I'm not afraid to get in the trenches. I would never ask someone to do a job that I wasn't willing to do myself. And I think it's just by keeping a cool head. And as a council on aging director and also the outreach worker for so long, there were many crisis situations that came across our desk. And we were just able to dig in, get it resolved. You may fall apart a little after when you get home, but I think it's just copperheads prevail in situations like that.
Great, thank you.
How many union contracts have you negotiated the past 6 years?
I have not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Random departments decide that something could possibly benefit them.
Okay.
It's not budgeted.
Yeah.
It could be a good idea, it could be a bad idea, it needs to be vetted. Ultimately, it comes to the point where we all determine, maybe through various individual discussions, that it's probably a good idea. How do you work with the department to deal with something that's not budgeted, but you think it may be a good idea?
So I think that I work very closely with you to determine what you feel, what your priorities are, and where we're headed. I think, again, it goes back to communication with your department heads, trying to anticipate when those things are coming up. A lot of these things you can anticipate as you're going into budget season. Obviously not everything, but I think it's just, again, keeping your ear to the ground. Are there extra resources? Reach out to your state delegation. Is there a grant for this? I think it's just, you can't just sit in your office and make things happen. You need to build those relationships, you need to be able to steward them. And whether it's with your department heads or your funding sources, I think that's going to be your best bet to be successful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to build off the question
Please.
Kevin asked about union contracts. So you haven't done it, right?
Yeah.
But what would be your approach? Because the town administrator
All right, absolutely.
is a big piece of that puzzle, right? And so not the lead negotiator, but involved in the process. So just give me some insight on how
Yeah,
you
no,
would
absolutely.
approach that.
I don't think that you can go in with that bull in a china shop mentality of this is our number, this is what we have, we're sticking to it. I don't think that's how you get off on a good foot. I think you obviously, you know what your numbers are, you know what, at the end of the day, where you need to land. But I think that you go in and you work collaboratively with the people at the table. You listen, you negotiate, you find a common, you don't just kind of dig your heels in and that's it, because you're never going to earn a good reputation, and you need to work with these people long term. So you just need to build on you need to set a good foundation, and I think you just need to keep the lines of communication open. You need to be creative, and I just think you continue forward there.
Great. Thank you. Kevin?
I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Bob?
What would this board be most frustrated with you at the helm? Well, I should rephrase that. What would frustrate us the most about working with you?
My level of transparency, it will say on my gravestone, I don't ever want to testify on my own behalf. So I will never hide anything from you. I will sometimes tell you things you may not even want to know, but just because it's my job to keep you from getting blindsided. I don't want you to read about it on social media where you have to defend yourself. I don't want you to hear it out on the street, oh, this happened, and why didn't I know that? I think it's all about transparency. And again, you may not want to hear what I have to say, but you will never get blindsided if I have this job.
Thank you.
I'm curious about, you said you're at Northeastern?
Yes.
Tell me about, I want to learn more about that. What's that?
So right now I'm taking fundamentals of public administration and development of public policy. I have to tell you, it's very overwhelming at 49 years old to go back to school
Right.
with kids. But I just think it lays the groundwork. Part of my problem, Selectman Warner, is I don't have the experience to get a job like this, and that's difficult. So I just think by building on my knowledge base, I'm making a lot of nice contacts. I had originally been accepted to Suffolk, which was where I was going to go, but that was a 3-night in-person commitment in Boston. I can't do that, especially if I'm looking for a new job. That's why I ended up at Northeastern. But I just think if I can put as many tools in my toolbox as possible and build those relationships, get that strong foundation, that'll help me be successful.
That's great. I think that's, it's an important mindset to have, right? It's just constantly wanting to better yourself and to grow.
And that's why I have my MCPPO too. I've only used it twice, but again, it's a tool in the toolbox.
So what you're learning in the book versus what you've learned either being, like going to town meeting, running a department,
Yeah.
being in the arena? Like, what is it real world, or like what's more important, real world or what you're learning in the book?
I think real world. Because, in the book it's great, it's the foundations, but it doesn't account for all those nuances or those niches. Like when I was in the school department for a year and I was going out to bid on things, and yeah, you learn the foundation of that in school. You do A, you do B, which leads to C. Let's face it, it always branches off. Someone throws your curveball. But it's nice to have that foundation, to at least kind of know the terms.
Yeah, a little off script, and I'm dating myself. Kevin, you'll probably remember the movie, I don't know if Bob, if you saw it, but Rodney Dangerfield's Back to School, right? When he's, the professor they're talking about how to get a permit, right?
Yeah.
And the professor is saying, well, he goes, no, right? So
Yes.
I always get a kick out of that, and I think all of us have gotten PhDs in government, just doing this job and sitting here and serving the public. So good stuff. I don't have any further questions. Gentlemen, do you have any more questions? Heather, do you have any questions of us?
So I'm just going to leave you with this. When Representative Hendricks nominated me for the Commonwealth Heroine Award, which I won while I was here, he called it a no-brainer. So hopefully you'll take the same mindset. I do have a question about the process. It's been a long process, like you said. What do you see the timeline as being to make a decision?
I don't know. We'll have to deliberate. Going into this, we had 3 different candidates, 3 different skill sets. I can just speak for myself, and I was going to say this as I've been taking down my notes. Obviously, the board will deliberate, but I would like to meet with the search committee, who did, I think, a lot of the really diving into the weeds and, reviewed the responses. But, we met with the chairman who spoke on behalf of the committee, but I really would like to speak with that body as a whole and talk to each member who interviewed you and get their gut. I mean, I think that'll be really helpful to me to make a final decision. And so that's something that, maybe wasn't part of the plan here, but after seeing the three of you who again I thought all of you did a fantastic job, brought different approaches. It's really made me think long and hard. So I don't know how my colleagues feel, but I'd like to meet with the search committee again, because in a committee they recommend people.
Right.
Sometimes is unanimous consent, sometimes is this, that, and the other thing. So I really want to dive into that. So that's kind of what I would like to do moving forward.
Great. That's all I have for questions.
Thank you, Heather.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Heather.
Thanks, nice to
Thank
see
you,
everybody.
Heather.
You as well.
Have a great night.
James, you too.
All right. Gentlemen, I thought that was a good process, and thankful that we went through it. Appreciate everybody participating. Any thoughts, questions, or concerns?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I've said it numerous times. I'm going to say it one more time without being disrespectful to any of the three that we just interviewed. We had more to interview, but they withdrew. Keeping the ad advertised for all of our open positions. Something that's still, to this day, not done. I don't know how we plan on doing this moving forward, but I think that we need to be better at staying on top of our openings, job openings, and keep them advertised. I've talked about the MMA. It's good for 30 days, wait a day or two, repost it, you're back at the top, you're visible again. We've been distinguished for months, and I think that's
Are
very
you talking about the
unfortunate.
town administrator position?
All of our positions,
Okay, but I appreciate that, Kevin.
all of our positions.
But I think with this town administrator role, if you're suggesting that you want to continue to advertise for this role, I'm not in favor of that. I think we've got a process, and if at the end of the day, at the end of that process, the board feels that they want to continue advertising, but I would, then that's the purview of the board. And I realize I'm in a difficult position because I'm outgoing, right? And I'm joking around with Bob. I feel like I'm, at the end of my rope. I don't like to use the term, but I'm trying to get all my affairs in order and leave things in an orderly fashion.
It's fine.
So, I was enlightened by these three candidates, and I'd like to learn more about how the search committee felt about them in more in depth. I mean, I think you had people who, I got a text, I put a lot of time into this. So I want to take advantage of the people who put that time in. At the end of that at least helped me have a more informed position, either yay or nay, or to move on.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I appreciate both ideas. What I will go back and reference, and once again, this has nothing to do with the candidates, going through our old meetings and trying to figure out stuff, what Selectman Gasper's talking about was actually made a motion months ago, and it wasn't so much to put a stop to this process. I think back when we started all these open candidacy, Mr. Gasper actually made a motion that anytime there's an open position, it remains posted. And I don't think it's so much taking away from the three candidates, which I felt great about all three of them. I get along with all three of them, and I would never disparage what they went through. But I think on principle, having a motion set in stone months ago that said all jobs need to be posted if they're not filled, I'd have to agree with Selectman Gasper on that, simply because we need to be consistent. And I think during this whole process and learning about this whole process and how it kind of slowed down in general, and I know with Jamie going out on medical, me having basically December on the sidelines dealing with day jobs and stuff like that, I wasn't even really keeping on top of it. I'm fully in support in general until that position is filled and a hire is made, no matter what department it is, whether it's a custodian, town administrator, you name it, it should be posted on job websites. Because no matter what, somebody might see a job, realize that we're going through this process, and find another one of our jobs that they're actually more qualified for. And once again, it's not to disparage any of the three candidates. I think it's about consistency. And I think it's helpful just to get it out there, because I've been approached personally, no matter what job it was, hey, how come this isn't posted? And I'd have to, I seconded the motion because I felt that way months ago, and I think we should stay consistent with that anyway.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm clear, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll go back to the minutes. But I thought regarding the town administrator position, we agreed, because we had a search committee and we had all that stuff, Kevin asked that we continue it to be posted, and we did that through November.
Mhm.
And I remember talking with Mr. Dakin, and we said that we were going to keep it open for that period of time, close it, and then get to the interviews of the finalists. That's what I thought I heard, and I thought that's what we voted on. But if I'm incorrect, then look, you know me well enough that if I'm incorrect, I'll go back and I'll admit that. But I was under the perception that because we put this search committee, it was their expectation that they did their interviews, they provided names, and then it was up to us to interview those. And then if we didn't come to a consensus, then either have them do it again or figure something else out. But if you guys want to post it, keep it posted, that's fine. I will just offer this up. This is my gut. When the town administrator position is probably the most important one. When you have mass advertisements on town accountant, part-time this, full-time that, part-time this, full-time that, it gives a perception of like, okay, what's going on over there and why would I want to take this job? So that's just something to consider. That I think we got to be, we have a building inspector, we have somebody who's a town account, who's the assistant town accountant functioning in that role. This is the big job here, the town administrator job. And I think once you're able to fill that position or make some type of decision, then the rest can fall into place. That's my position. But I'm one of three with also an expiration date on this chair. So I'm also very respectful of
I
that.
think if you look at MMA, as I've watched MMA, there's been consistency in some towns where they have, like you just alluded to, 3 or 4 positions in their town. It's that time where people are retiring out, and there's plenty of examples out there where they have 3 or 4. Look, we have vacancies. You can't fill a vacancy without advertising for that vacancy. I've been a stickler about this for years, not just the last few months. You got to keep the advertisement running. I think if we kept the advertisement running consecutively and we had more resumes coming in, the screening committee would be doing what they do. And, again, nothing to say anything about the 3 interviews we just did, but we had 2 other ones that were interested individuals. The time frame lapsed, they dropped out of it. Shameful, I thought, because I thought they were 2 interested individuals on top of the 3 that we already had. Can't fill positions if it's not advertised, so again.
Those 2 candidates, I would have no problem. I'll call them personally. And
The
see if
problem
they
is
wanna-
too late. One's taking a job and the other one's already said he's withdrawn.
But that's fine.
So
I mean,
it is
whatever.
what it is.
I mean,
Mistakes have been made. I would rather not continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over. That's all.
I'm
So
trying to get my head around that though. But so, do you guys want to, we need to do something with these 3 candidates. So I've asked that we meet with the Search and Screen Committee. I think I don't find that to be an unreasonable request, because I'd like to hear from every single one of those members who participated in that process and interviewed these people, how they truly felt. And if there's, I'd like to, at least I'll have a clear conscience in knowing that whatever decision is made, if it's one of the 3 or none of the 3 on the board, then, okay, then we can deal with that. Then the process is closed. Maybe I'm too linear in my thinking, but that would be my preference.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I completely respect where you're coming from in this. I'm gonna look at it from the opposite end of this. And I totally agree with sitting down with the search committee and discussing it, and I think that's a very, very smart way to approach this and really get candid with everybody and have more input than just us. Ultimately, we're the ones that are gonna make the decision, and whether it's one of the three or none of the three, I'm always thinking worst case of what could happen if something happens where it's not one of the three. And obviously, we don't even have this on for discussion to talk about the individual candidates and come to a decision on this. But I don't want to have to wait another 2 weeks to go through and the effort to repost at that point. And I'm not looking at it once again, and I can't stress this enough. This isn't to disparage any of the three. This is knowing like what my schedule's like, what your schedule's like, and what budget season's going to do to us shortly. Mr. Kelly, we have to have the discussion with his role coming up. I think I would feel much more comfortable if every position was listed, and it's really not to disparage, honestly, to sound perfectly honest with me, my basis on this is to save time. And if it does have to get to that point, if we end up hiring one of the three, we just take it down. And I can see where you're coming from with multiple positions open, but I think by now everybody knows the situation we're in, and I think they're understanding it, and I think us just having the option is better than nothing.
That's fine. I will not get in the way of that. I'm one of three, I always say that. But I'd like, if I can get a motion to do that, to repost the town administrator position along with all the other ones. Because again, I think I want to just double check.
Yep.
I'm pretty certain we said it would run through the end of November, and we stopped that, and
So
not to renew it.
if I recall, we didn't actually say not to renew it. We had the discussion that we would let it ride, the current posting ride, and we would discuss it in the future. And unfortunately, we never actually discussed it. But
Okay.
that's nobody's fault.
That's fair.
We just didn't get to that point, and I think, and I'll take partial responsibility for December. I told you guys in November that December was gonna be really hard for me.
Same for me.
And, I think just with everything else going on, I normally would have brought it up then, and I just didn't because I was so overwhelmed with day job, home life, and this that, it kind of slipped my mind. And,
Okay.
like you said in these meetings, how we were kind of head down, hyper-focused, trying to get everything else done. And I have to stress this once again, I'm gonna say it over and over again, this is not disparaging towards any of the candidates. I think, God forbid, if this doesn't go the way it's, in the right direction, we won't have to sit there and wait a couple weeks for another meeting to repost and make motions like that. So I would make a motion to repost for the town administrator position and all other open positions in town.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Let me just touch base on what Mr. Hinckley, he did a very good job, I think, of explaining that, right? It's not to disparage any of the three candidates, right? We still afford ourselves that opportunity. You can speak to committee members. I'll speak, as I already did speak to some of them, but I'll indulge a little bit more with them and speak to them. Mr. Hinckley can do the same thing over the three that we have left remaining out of the five that was picked by the screening committee, right? And then we need to have a discussion about the candidates in executive session on the contract negotiations. So we have an opportunity to discuss that amongst ourselves and see where we're at with those three. And if we decide to go with one of the three, we don't worry about any of the new resumes that came in for anybody we hire, and we say, have a nice day. I mean, it's that simple, but I agree with Mr. Hinckley. We got nothing out there. We're not filling positions. We have people that need help in offices, and we're not getting that help because we're not advertising. That's just my point. Again, Mr. Hinckley did a very good job explaining that. I don't see the harm in re-advertising these positions and getting that going, and why close the door on future opportunities?
Okay.
I don't get it.
Can I, just to make sure, so we got a motion to repost the town administrator position along with other positions this way, regardless of what was said in November, it's immaterial. But we're looking to meet next week. I'm unavailable to meet on the 3rd like we would normally meet. We're looking at the 10th, is that the 10th?
The 10th would have been the following week that I requested
Right.
earlier.
Yes,
If
so
that's
on
okay.
February 10th, would you gentlemen be okay if we were to, I would like to bring in the search committee and have an executive session to
Sure.
talk that through with them as a board, and then just have a candid conversation, right? Where we're advertising, do we want them to continue to be part of the search committee? Like, I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I'm okay with that personally.
Great. Then we'll do that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would defer to the town administrator that's sitting right over there to our left still currently to make sure he checks with town council to make sure that's an option for the board.
Why, I just want to make sure, why wouldn't it be?
There's only certain reasons you are able to go into executive session, and I'm not so sure that's gonna be one of them, and I'm just asking to double check it.
I'll call,
Or open session, I mean, either one, whatever. I mean, to talk about these candidates, I think, I don't see why it wouldn't be. but-
I'll call town council this
Okay.
evening.
Sounds good. All right. Next thing is, we've got an executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, DPW Union Local 1249, or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and the board will not return to public session at the conclusion of the executive session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote, Mr. Gasper?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
I'm a yes.